The world had long since shed its history of conflict. Decades of peace, coupled with unprecedented technological advancements, had brought about an era of harmony on Earth. The human race had turned its attention away from war, instead focusing on exploration, scientific discovery, and the betterment of society. The world had come to believe that warfare was a relic of the past, something humanity had outgrown. Across the globe, military forces had been downsized or entirely disbanded. Defense systems were primarily designed for peacekeeping and humanitarian purposes. It seemed as though Earth's time of struggle had ended, and the future was one of progress and prosperity. But just as humanity had grown comfortable in this new age of peace, something changed. Without warning, a series of strange signals began to appear in Earth's communication systems. At first, they were dismissed as glitches or technical errors, but they soon became impossible to ignore. Ships, massive and unlike anything the humans had ever seen, appeared in the sky. They came from beyond the stars, an alien race known as the Zorthians, ruthless conquerors who had swept through countless worlds with ease. Their technology was far beyond Earth's, their weapons devastating, and their motives clear: domination. The Zorthians had never met a species that could stand against them. Their fleet descended upon Earth, and the planet's leaders were caught off guard, scrambling to make sense of the invasion. Cities around the world were soon surrounded by towering alien ships, and the skies were filled with strange crafts that moved with terrifying precision. The Zorthians' arrival was swift, their military might undeniable. Earth's once proud defense systems, meant to maintain peace and stability, were now hopelessly inadequate against the advanced weaponry of the invaders. The Zorthians wasted no time in launching their assault. They landed in major cities, deploying their ground forces with the expectation that humanity would surrender quickly. To them, Earth was a weak, peaceful planet, one that had forgotten how to fight, one that no longer had the means to defend itself. The invaders had studied human history and assumed that the centuries of peace had dulled humanity's edge. The Zorthians believed they were facing a species of pacifists, incapable of mounting a meaningful resistance. They were wrong. As the alien forces took control of the streets, humanity was forced into a corner. For the first time in years, fear gripped the hearts of people worldwide. But beneath that fear, there was something else, a glimmer of defiance. Though the world had abandoned its militaristic ways, it had not lost its spirit. In every corner of the earth, ordinary people began to resist. Small groups of civilians, former soldiers, and scientists rallied together in secret, determined not to let their world fall without a fight. They knew that the battle ahead would not be easy. The Zorthians were advanced, their technology superior. But humanity had something that the aliens couldn't predict: their ability to adapt, to think on their feet, and to use their creativity and resourcefulness in ways that no other species had ever done before. As the alien forces secured their footholds in the cities, humanity began to quietly regroup. Resistance cells formed in hidden bunkers, underground shelters, and remote locations, drawing upon the remnants of old military technologies that had been forgotten in the peace years. The world's leaders, though caught off guard, began to realize that they could not simply surrender. The time for diplomacy was over. If humanity was going to survive, they would need to learn how to fight again. The Zorthians, confident in their superiority, did not see the quiet preparations unfolding beneath their noses. They thought they had won before the first shot was fired, believing that humanity had lost the will to fight long ago. What they didn't know, however, was that they had underestimated Earth's greatest strength: its people. Unseen by the invaders, the first whispers of resistance began to grow louder, and humanity's resolve began to harden. Soon, the world would learn that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could never be extinguished. The Zorthians might have expected a swift victory, but they were about to find out that humanity had not forgotten how to fight. As Earth fell deeper into the grip of the alien invasion, hope seemed to flicker and fade with every passing hour. The Zorthian forces, with their overwhelming strength and advanced technology, had taken control of major cities, leaving Earth's defenses crumbling in their wake. The world seemed on the brink of total collapse, but in the shadows of this chaos, an unlikely figure began to rise: General Eleanor Graves. Once a celebrated military strategist, Eleanor had quietly disappeared from the public eye years ago, living in the seclusion of a small remote cabin. No one knew where she had gone or what had happened to her. But now, she was about to reappear in the most crucial moment of all. Eleanor had been part of a highly classified program during humanity's peak military era, known only to a handful of top-level officials. The project was called The Remnants, and it was designed with one purpose: to preserve humanity's combat capabilities, just in case the day came when war could no longer be avoided. The Remnants were meant to be a hidden legacy, a last line of defense should Earth ever face a threat like this. For years, all knowledge of the program had been buried, its secrets kept from the world. But now, with Earth's survival on the line, it was time for those secrets to resurface. Eleanor gathered a small group of trusted veterans, scientists, and former soldiers, each of whom had a piece of the puzzle. Together, they began to unlock the vaults of Earth's lost military technologies. These were not just weapons, but the strategies, tactics, and battle methods that had once made humanity a force to be reckoned with. The group scoured forgotten military archives, old training manuals, and encrypted data, piecing together everything from guerrilla tactics to advanced weaponry that had been discarded in favor of peace. As they worked, Eleanor reminded her team, time and time again, of humanity's true strength. Not the advanced technology of the Zorthians, but the human spirit. They have weapons we can't match, yes, she told them. But we have something they can't predict. We have ingenuity. We have unpredictability. We have a mind that can adapt faster than any machine. The team rallied around her words, as though the very essence of humanity had been reignited within them. Day by day, they reintroduced techniques that had been long forgotten, training with old weapons and strategies that had once been considered obsolete. They studied the patterns of the Zorthian forces, learning to think like their enemies, to understand the mind of an invader. The group worked tirelessly, knowing that every minute wasted was another minute the enemy gained. But as they delved deeper into the past, they uncovered not just old ways of fighting, but a mentality, a warrior's spirit that had been dormant for far too long. They began to see patterns in the Zorthian movements, predictable patterns that no one else had noticed. Eleanor's insight, honed from years of military experience, proved invaluable. She saw through the enemy's strategy and began to plot their downfall, one small victory at a time. The Zorthians, for all their technological power, were still predictable in their overconfidence. They believed humanity had lost the will to fight, that the humans they faced were nothing more than frightened civilians. But as the remnants of Earth's military legacy began to take shape, Eleanor's team knew that they were about to change the course of the war. They weren't just going to defend Earth. They were going to strike back with a vengeance, using the very unpredictability that had once made humanity the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Their first move was small, a sabotage mission deep behind enemy lines, targeting a vital Zorthian supply depot. It was a risk, but it paid off. The team used the Zorthians' own technology against them, turning their superior weapons into traps. The success of the mission sent ripples of fear through the Zorthian ranks. It was a reminder that humans had not forgotten how to fight. The stage was now set for a much larger operation. Eleanor's team had only just begun to tap into the potential of Earth's ancient military knowledge, and they were more determined than ever to show the Zorthians that no matter how advanced their technology, they would never understand the one thing that made humans truly dangerous: the unbreakable will to survive and fight for what was theirs. As they prepared for the next phase of their resistance, the message was clear to everyone watching. The battle for Earth was far from over, and humanity had only just begun to fight back. The first strike against the Zorthians came swiftly, a bold move that sent ripples of uncertainty through their ranks. Eleanor's team had spent weeks preparing for this moment, assembling a plan that combined guerrilla warfare with Earth's long-forgotten military ingenuity. Their resources were scarce, but the remnants of old military technologies were enough to give them a fighting chance. They had no grand fleet, no massive army, but what they had was knowledge. And the element of surprise? The operation began with a series of swift, calculated strikes aimed at Zorthian supply lines and communication networks. The Zorthians, in their overconfidence, had underestimated the humans. They had assumed that Earth was defenseless, that their technology and sheer numbers would overwhelm any resistance, but they were wrong. The humans, though few in number, fought with a cunning that the Zorthians were unprepared for. Eleanor's group used their knowledge of the land and the Zorthian weaknesses to their advantage, setting traps and ambushes that turned the invaders' own technology against them. The first few attacks were small but effective. A supply convoy was ambushed in the mountains, Zorthian communications were sabotaged, and alien patrols disappeared into thin air, leaving nothing but confusion and chaos in their wake. The Zorthians found themselves questioning everything. Their intelligence was compromised, their supply lines severed, and the humans, who had once been thought of as helpless civilians, had become shadows in the dark, striking fast and disappearing before they could be caught. As the attacks piled up, the Zorthians struggled to grasp what was happening. They had expected a quick, easy conquest, but the humans were proving far more resourceful and relentless than they had imagined. The invaders, who had prided themselves on their advanced technology and overwhelming force, now found themselves ensnared by their own creations. Zorthian weaponry, once thought infallible, was turned against them. Humans had learned to hack, disable, and repurpose the alien technology with shocking speed. In one instance, a Zorthian drone that had been scouting a human camp was suddenly reprogrammed, turned around, and sent back to its own command center with false data. In another, a Zorthian battle tank was hijacked and used to destroy a Zorthian weapons depot. The invaders had no idea that their own machines were becoming tools for the humans' resistance. Each strike was a calculated blow, each operation a carefully crafted work of art. The tide, though still favoring the Zorthians, was beginning to shift. Earth's resistance was no longer a symbol of desperation. It was a growing force to be reckoned with. But the Zorthians, though stunned, were not easily deterred. Admiral Kalorth, the ruthless commander of the Zorthian fleet, could no longer ignore the reality of the situation. At first, he had written off humanity's actions as mere desperation, a fleeting attempt to fight back before surrendering. But as the attacks continued, something became clear. These humans were not simply fighting for survival. They were remembering how to wage war. Kalorth realized that the humans were adapting faster than he had anticipated. The Zorthians' superiority in technology was still undeniable, but they were facing an enemy that refused to break. In a heated meeting with his senior officers, Kalorth's frustration boiled over. "They're learning," he said, his voice cold and calculating. "They're not just resisting, they're becoming dangerous." His words hung in the air. He had underestimated the humans, assuming they would fold under the pressure. But this fight was no longer just about an invasion. It was a battle of wits, a test of survival. As the humans gained more ground, Kalorth knew he had to change his approach. He ordered a series of retaliatory strikes, more brutal and aggressive than before, aiming to break the human resistance once and for all. Yet, in doing so, he only fueled the fire within Earth's fighters. The Zorthian commander's decision to escalate the war only further proved that humanity had found its edge. Each attack from the Zorthians pushed the humans to adapt, to think, faster, and fight smarter. With every passing day, the resistance grew more confident, more organized, and more determined. The Zorthians might have thought they had the upper hand, but the humans were proving something that would soon be impossible to ignore. They had not forgotten how to fight. They were evolving, and they were not going to stop. As the war raged, the human resistance, once fragmented and scattered, had now united under a single banner. The remnants of Earth's military leaders, scientists, and civilians had come together to form a global coalition, determined to drive the Zorthian invaders from their home. Eleanor's team, the heart of this growing resistance, had become a symbol of human resilience, their every move calculated with precision and ingenuity. The first strikes, though successful, were small in comparison to what was now required. The time had come for a large-scale counterattack. Armed with salvaged Zorthian technology and a wealth of re-engineered Earth weaponry, the human forces launched an offensive aimed at retaking key military bases and Zorthian strongholds. It was a risk, but it was the only option left. The attack, bold and sudden, caught the Zorthians off guard. They had underestimated the coordination and determination of the humans, who had learned to fight not just with weapons, but with cunning and creativity. The battles were intense, the losses mounting on both sides, but the tide had begun to turn in humanity's favor. The humans' resilience in battle, combined with their ability to adapt and outthink the Zorthians, became their greatest weapon. In one pivotal battle, Eleanor's forces managed to strike at the heart of a major Zorthian command center, crippling their communications and causing widespread panic among the invaders. The victory was a turning point in the war. Admiral Kalorth, a commander who had once seen the conquest of Earth as inevitable, now found himself on the defensive. The humans, who had once been so easily dismissed, were showing a level of organization and determination that even he couldn't ignore. Furious and desperate, Kalorth ordered his forces to retaliate with full force, targeting Earth's capital cities in an attempt to crush the resistance once and for all. He believed that if he could strike at the heart of humanity, the war would end. But his decision to escalate the conflict came at a cost. As the Zorthians prepared their final assault, humanity's resolve only grew stronger. The resistance was no longer fighting just for survival. They were fighting for their very existence, for the future of their children, for the future of Earth. The human spirit, once thought broken, had been reignited in the face of impossible odds. The coalition's forces began to adapt in ways the Zorthians never expected. They used psychological tactics, exploiting the invaders' overconfidence and arrogance. Zorthian soldiers, trained for brute force, were caught off guard by the humans' clever strategies, designed not just to destroy but to confuse, disorient, and demoralize. As the final battle loomed on the horizon, Eleanor knew that the only way to end the war was to confront Kalorth directly. The Zorthian commander, who had underestimated humanity from the very beginning, was now their greatest obstacle. Eleanor made a bold decision, a high-risk mission to infiltrate the Zorthian mothership and face the alien leader head-on. It was a dangerous gamble, one that could end in disaster, but it was the only chance to bring the war to a decisive end. The operation was set in motion, and the stakes had never been higher. As the clock ticked down, humanity's fate rested on the shoulders of a small, elite team led by Eleanor herself. The plan was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate the Zorthian flagship, disable their weapons systems, and confront Admiral Kalorth in person. If they succeeded, it would be the final blow to the Zorthian invasion. If they failed, it would mean the end of Earth as they knew it. As the human resistance prepared for the ultimate confrontation, there was no turning back. The battle for Earth had reached its climax, and the outcome would be decided not just by technology, but by the will to fight, the strength of the human spirit, and the courage to face the enemy on their own terms. The final showdown was about to begin, and Eleanor's team was ready to prove that humanity's greatest weapon was its unbreakable will to survive. The final assault had begun, and the fate of Earth now rested on the shoulders of General Eleanor Graves and her select team of elite soldiers. Their mission was as daring as it was dangerous: infiltrate the Zorthian mothership, penetrate its heart, and destroy the alien command structure once and for all. Every moment was fraught with peril as they boarded the massive flagship, every step a calculated risk. The Zorthian flagship loomed overhead like a dark shadow, its advanced defenses waiting to tear apart anyone who dared approach. Eleanor's team moved swiftly, using every ounce of their training and the element of surprise to navigate through enemy lines. Zorthian traps and technological barriers were everywhere, designed to ensnare the unwary, but the humans had learned to think outside the box. They weren't just using military tactics, they were using the very unpredictability that had made them so dangerous in the first place. Each trap was a puzzle, and every Zorthian soldier they encountered was another challenge to overcome. The tension inside the mothership was palpable as they advanced, step by step, through the maze of steel corridors and alien technology. The team fought with relentless determination, their every move fueled by the knowledge that the survival of their species depended on the outcome of this mission. The Zorthian forces, though technologically superior, were caught off guard by the humans' tenacity and ingenuity. It wasn't just a battle for survival anymore. It was a battle for the future of humanity. As they fought their way deeper into the heart of the mothership, the humans began to realize something that the Zorthians had never anticipated. The strength of the human spirit could not be quantified or understood by any enemy. They were not fighting out of desperation. They were fighting because they had a future to protect, a legacy to defend. And that made all the difference. The journey to Admiral Kalorth was not easy. The team faced wave after wave of alien soldiers, advanced weaponry, and the constant threat of failure. But with every inch they gained, they grew stronger. They were no longer just a group of soldiers. They had become a symbol of humanity's unwavering will to survive. And that symbol was about to face the Zorthian commander himself. Kalorth, once so confident in his ability to crush the human resistance, now found himself staring into the face of the very thing he had underestimated. As the humans breached his command center, he finally understood the true nature of his opponents. They were not just fighting for their lives, they were fighting for their right to exist in a galaxy that had underestimated them. The final confrontation between Eleanor's team and Admiral Kalorth was nothing short of brutal. The Zorthian commander fought with every ounce of his strength, but he was no match for the humans' sheer willpower and unrelenting determination. The battle was fierce, but the humans' adaptability and resilience proved to be the key. The turning point came when Eleanor, with a combination of military strategy and raw determination, outmaneuvered Kalorth, delivering a crushing blow to the Zorthian forces. The commander, once the embodiment of Zorthian superiority, was finally overpowered. With his fall, the Zorthian command structure collapsed, and the invaders were thrown into disarray. The victory was not just a military one, it was a statement to the galaxy. Earth, once thought defenseless and weak, had stood its ground and fought back. The Zorthian forces, so confident in their conquest, were now in retreat. The humans had not just survived, they had triumphed. In the aftermath, Earth stood strong, its people united in victory. The war was over, but the legacy of that battle would echo throughout history. Humanity had shown the galaxy that while they may have forgotten the art of war, they had never lost the will to fight. The Zorthians learned too late that the greatest strength of all was not in technology or power, but in the spirit of those who refused to surrender. Earth's victory was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder to the galaxy that humanity would never be underestimated. Again. The war was over, but the story of humanity's survival and triumph would live on forever.